Today on Time Out Coaching, we welcome a rising star of British coaching, former head coach of the Leicester Riders WBBL team and now head coach of Wetterbygden Sparks in the Sweden's top women's league. Please welcome Coach Krumesh Patel.
Thanks for having me, Tony. I'm really excited for this.
Coach, that's great. Now, I know that you've done, you did the podcast with Mark Woods and, he went over some of your career and stuff, but, really want to just talk about, those early experiences, how you were introduced to basketball and then how that linked into, the coaching side of it. Did some of those early experiences, start shaping some of your coaching?
Mm-hmm. So I got introduced to basketball from secondary school. One of my PE teachers, John Peacock, at the time at Leicester, he made it a case that everybody that came had to play basketball. It wasn't optional, and it's a sport that none of us knew. So even to a point where the other PE teacher, JHR, who was big on football, he was like, if you want to play football, you got to play for the basketball team as well.
Sure.
So we were thrown in straight away. And then
that by the way, for the younger listeners, that back in the day, I mean, I tell always a great story about my secondary school sport that I learned the hard way. Was when I refused to run on the cross country team. And I got, banned from playing one basketball game. And then I decided to run at the back of the cross country race. And I got banned for one more game as well. So then I had to run at the front, which I was quite good at. So those things, happened back in the day. It wasn't the choice that these younger people have now, it just doesn't happen. So,
no.
Yeah.
For me, I was really grateful for my PE staff then. They influenced a lot of who I am as a person as well as coaching. They allowed us to take part in different teams, talk about team element and also the pride for playing for your school, and there's a big thing back in the day. So when I was younger, I played loads of sports. I played rugby, I played basketball, I played football, all to like regional level. And then I played cricket, but that was because my dad said I had to play cricket. It was one of his passions. So I didn't mind it, but as I got older, I was doing 3 sports, and cricket was the one I wanted to drop early, but that was harder to drop because my dad really wanted me to do it.
Sure.
And then naturally, as you get older, you start to become stronger at one sport, and I became stronger at basketball. And then I made the East Midlands team, and I was like in year 9, and that propelled me. Okay, like I'm gonna really focus into basketball, playing for like Bob McFadden and Mandy Pollard in their club for Leicester Cannons. And like looking back on it, I was like, oh, Leicester Cannons is a team that's growing. They lasted as long as my career and my team's career lasted. And when we finished, it went one more year and that finished as well.
Right.
But that's how I was introduced into playing. And then I think that stemmed into my coaching. So everywhere I was at, the coaches always allowed me to lead a little bit. And I think that was just naturally how I was, because I played the point guard spot. And I realized early on I wasn't as athletic as many people,
Sure.
but I could use my brain a little bit quicker, and that stemmed into coaching areas.
Am I right in thinking, I met, obviously I know Mandy did really well, but Bob McFadden was a very, a very good technical coach. He taught the fundamentals very well. If I'm not mistaken, that's correct?
No, you're spot on. Like Bob was very good for our group. I have close friends, and 4 of us, were in that East Midlands into. Some of them made international teams, and we were a very strong team. But that started from Bob and who he was. It was all technical. It was nothing like crazy. It was, can we do the basics really, really well? So we did really well in our first year, under 14s, a new team. We ended up being in the Final 4. We ended up beating Sheffield Sharks, who are renowned for junior program.
Sure, yeah.
Just because of everything that was going. And then it's funny because Josh Betts messaged me the other day. He's like, do you remember when we played it when you were at Tasses? I was like, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
So he was that. And then, but that was when I realized the little detail of your skills make massive difference,
Sure.
But Bob was very good for that. But then as we got older, the game started to change, and that's where he wasn't where we needed to be. But I got lucky again, because when Bob finished with us, Dave Greenaway came in and took over.
Right.
And Dave Greenaway is very similar in the sense of he was very big on the technical skill, teaching us different kind of ways how to play with our body and stuff. So I was introduced from a younger age. Even my PE teacher, John Peacock, was very much like, look at your shooting mechanics. What are you doing? Where are your feet? So that's all I knew. So I was like, okay, that's how my brain started to function about this is how basketball was. I wasn't introduced in any other way, but that's the influences of people around me. And as you know, Mandy Pollard was the same. She wasn't really bothered if you won or lost, but she'd question what kind of pass you made, why did you make that decision? So all them people had decided to, without me knowing, at a young age, were talking about, you know, the right way of playing with your technical skill rather than just, you know, trying to find ways to win.
At this time, what year, roughly what years were this? This was in the 2000 period, yeah?
Yeah, so I was in, it's challenging me now, 2006 is when I finished secondary school. So that's when I finished secondary school.
So at that time, were you going to see the Riders play? So was there an aspiration, you know, what kind of there? I mean, you probably miss, if I'm not mistaken, you miss Granby Halls. Yeah, but you're in, you know, when the club was, you know, chugging along at the what's the facility?
John Stanford,
you know, the lowest height ceiling in probably world basketball at any professional level. I'm pretty certain that
made you fear of shooting.
Yeah, I actually lost the game because we threw an all. Rob will tell you, you know, we actually ran an incredible end line play, which got us a free. But the ball had skimmed on the roof, and they made us run the play again. So Rob knew what we were doing. So anyway, that's another story for another day. But yeah, were you going there? Did you ever go there? Were you inspired by them?
Unfortunately, not so much. You know, growing up, it wasn't from, I guess, where we were. That wasn't the biggest one. I was at school at Rushmead, and we knew more about Carl Brown and the Leicester Warriors than we did about the Riders situation. We knew they was there, but it wasn't a thing that was pushed. Like, do you know how now loads of kids do development days? They go, they get the experience. That wasn't there back in the day, but you know, it wasn't pushed as much. So I know we had a final in year 11. That was at John Stanford. So then you stayed afterwards to watch the game.
Sure.
And then when I went into college, then there was more interest because we knew more of the people. It's like Russell was more around. So then we watched a few more games, but I don't know, maybe people have said the story before to you as well, but nobody wanted to pay for tickets. So you'd wait till half time, the security would go, and then everybody would go at half time to watch the second half of the game. So
okay, awesome.
But more when I was 16, 17, 18 is when I started to watch more of the BBL kind of stuff. Oh, the Riders, I would say.
Sure. And was that was just after Billy Mims, I'm assuming then. Yeah. So, okay. Just trying to get an idea of some of the influences that you may have seen as coaches at that time. So talk then, what's the next stage of you as a player? You know, obviously you're in, you know, this kind of environment where, you know, I mean, Leicester has got, you know, I mean, Carl Brown is, you know, one of the most famous, you know, players, you know, and there's definitely, you know, it's one of those hotbeds for some reason. You know, Leicester became something that basketball was gravitated to. So you've obviously got some influences. Where were you going next as a player?
So we were lucky. I think growing up into Leicester, we were blessed with like players that wanted to really compete in basketball. But the coaches around us, okay, Carl Brown is one. He was a big influence in the community. But Dave Greenaway, he came in to run our academy. He helped us. And then Dave Harris was huge in developing players. You know, he picked out players from nowhere, same as Carl, and just developed players. So these kind of people were creating players. And Dave Harris, from my knowledge, was the one creating the age group above me. So that was like, you know, Sam O'Shea, Tom Ward, you know, all these kind of guys. And they inspired us to be like just as good as them, but with a different coach. That was Dave Greenaway. Then Carl Brown had, you know, like Raphael, Elliot, Kareem. So it was like 3 different coaches having 3 different types of groups, but creating. So the coaching was producing good for youth basketball. But I ended up going to Beecham. We played there with the pinnacle, you know, the equivalent to EABL final. We made that. Our competition back in the day was, you know, Doncaster against Bob Martin, and he was great at creating shooters, so it was always good battles. You know, I remember like seeing Rob Marsden play at Sheffield. Now was like pretty cool because I was like, we played against you, but you were older than us in that EABL kind of environment. Sure. So it's really cool with that kind of situation. So I got to that, and as everyone, I wanted to go to America, you know, because that's what the dream was. And then, unfortunately, back then, like again, it was Dave's new job at the academy. He knew about as much as about America as we did, so he tried what he knew. There wasn't as many links or social media kind of platforms, so it kind of fell short. So then I decided to go to university in Leeds. Everyone's always like, "Oh, how come you didn't stay in Loughborough?" I wanted to move away from home, if I
Sure.
would be honest.
Good.
And then again, I went back to my PE teachers, and I was like, "Where is best for me to go for PE?" They were like, they told me a handful, and Leeds was one of them. So I was like, "I've got to go to Leeds." It was a really cool city. But I went to University of Leeds because I was academically I was strong, so I didn't go to Leeds where Matt Newby was. I went.
That's a shame. Yeah, that's
I went to Leeds Uni because that was the best one for my course, and I was thinking academically because I'm like, if I'm in England, I want to focus academically while playing basketball. But me and Matt Newby spoke, and we talked a little bit here and there. And I was going to play for their Division 3 team at the time, but the schedule doesn't work well because of the university schedule. So I ended up just focusing on the university. But funny, before that, I remember Mandy, when I met with her, because she was trying to help me where I was going, and she was trying to send me to Reading with Matt Johnson. She was like, "I think this would be really good for you." And Mandy was one of the first ones that always said to me, she goes, "Krumesh, to take this how you want, but I think you'll be a better coach than you'll be a player." So she's trying to send me an environment because, he had probably had influences in working with coaches. So I ended up at Leeds. I took a university program, which had one team, and I ended up taking over the program, became the president, became the head coach. We went from like one team to 3 teams and a girls team. I found money from different places, so we grew that. And we played against Leeds Met a couple of times. Their second team, not their first team. But we play the first team every year in varsity, so I get to play against Matt Newby. But he has all the guys that are like, we got, we have some good guys. We got lucky with some Sheffield guys and stuff. First 2 years, we got blown out by 30. You got blown out by 30. My third year, I'm like, okay, guys, I don't know what to do, but we can't get blown out by 30. We somehow racked it into, we lost by like 6 or 7. I can't remember, but we were celebrating like we won because that's for us.
That's awesome.
But then, so going to my third year of university, my university offered me a scholarship they're like, "Look, Krumesh, we'll give you some money if you want to coach as well as play." Right. So that's when I stepped in from being a player to player coach in my third year. So that's when I started to really step into the coaching side.
Just, half step backwards. So you go to university. Is your mindset when you're going to university, right, I'm going to study, I'm going to get a really high quality degree? Was there any mindset to coach at that time, or were you just, I'm going to play? And then, is there a moment where you started saying, right, what Mandy says could be true? I actually maybe do have some talent to be a coach, and maybe I should concentrate on that.
Well, no. I think I went to university because Leeds was a really cool city to be in. The course was solid, and I always wanted to continue to play basketball.
Right.
When I was in Leicester, I did some community coaching and stuff with the Riders, with Dave Harris, with some Carl Brown camps. I did loads of coaching, but I did that because that's better than getting a job at the shop or the whatever. Yeah. So I did that, and I did a lot of refereeing. Same situation. Right. I refereed games since I was 16, 17, because that's what, again, the influence of Cannons was they educate us in tabling, refereeing, and coaching. So I was like, what can I do not to get a job but make some money? Yeah. So my ambitions with them stuff was always to use that as a vehicle just to make some money, not as a profession. And then I remember when I was 18, I want to say, they nominated me to referee the Final Fours. As a 18-year-old boy, I've never so I remember going. I would referee just for fun, just to make some money, but I could referee. So they got me to do the Final Four. I remember doing the under 13s or the under 15s back in the day in Nottingham. And but I'm getting assessed. So I'm like, oh, okay. So obviously move forward. But back then, Roger Harris, he assesses me and he sits down and he goes, "Okay, Krumesh." I was like, all right, I was just doing this because I want to make some money, not because he tore into my shoes, my socks, my trousers. Why are you wearing that kind of whistle? Why did you not do this? Why did you that? I'm like, oh my God. But he was like, overall, he was like, pretty good, but you need to change, a lot of things. And he goes, would you want to go on to do your level 3? And I was like, honestly, no. He goes, what do you mean? I goes, I think the order is I want to play. If I can't play, I'll coach. If I can't coach, then I'll referee.
Right, sure.
And so I stayed with that mindset. So once I couldn't play, I think I naturally moved a little bit once Leeds gave me a chance to be like, okay, now I can coach a little bit. And then that was it. But I think my mindset, even at university, was to either become a teacher when I finished or try to move into like marketing and advertising and business side. That was the aim of doing it.
I'm gonna go on to that because you raised an interesting point, and I want to raise it, but just also back at this time, had you? I'm assuming you done level 1 and level 2. Who took your level 1 and level 2 courses?
Oh, you challenged me here. Level 1, I'm pretty sure we did it within the club with Bob McFadden and Mandy.
Right.
Level 2 was a coach from Northampton. I think his name was Chris. His second name is gonna evade me now.
Right.
He was an
Okay.
older gentleman, but he came and did our level 2, and that was through Carl Brown.
Right.
And then obviously my level 3 was through like it was in Manchester, and again the name it's really bad. The name of
Probably Mel Casson or Jeff Jones did it, maybe.
No, Jeff Jones was there, but he wasn't the lead. It was somebody else. Graham Heath.
Okay, yeah, that's
He
right.
did my level 3, so they were my instructors or whatever you want to call them.
Tutors. Yeah,
Tutors,
okay,
yeah.
Let's go back to my most important question. I find this really interesting. I think that as coaches here in the UK, we we get ourselves actually into a really good position when you take a job like you are now, because you've had to do so many things, to get your team onto the floor. And you're saying you did all these things at university. You fundraised, you found money from different budgets. You had to plan. You probably had to drive the minibus. You had to wash the kit. I mean, sometimes, and I've seen this where coaches from Spain and Greece, I mean, they turn up into an environment like the UK, and they're just lost because, or they go to somewhere else, like in Asia, and it's just they're used to just turning up to the best basketball court with all the balls and all the team in reversibles, and having 2 assistants and 2 team managers and a trainer, and they don't understand how to problem solve some things. So I'm interested in know your thoughts, if you feel that that's helped you with your coaching along the way, what you did at university.
I think so. I think it helped me a lot in learning how, and that's how university, it taught me how, it's important to why you have to work with sponsors, why you have to, have a budget, like it's easy to go to a program and be like, I want to do this, and not, and why is there no money? Whereas because I ran my program, we had to go out and be like, okay, this is the money we raised. Okay, now how do we want to spend this money? Like, how do we spend it for transport? Do we spend it on kit? Do we spend it on a night out for the team? All that kind of stuff came into it. So my brain was wide, and this is how a program should work. Here's the money, and be smart where you're spending it. And I think that definitely helped. And also all the other stuff, like you said, doing everything on your own holds value to the people that do actually come and support you and help you, and that was something that, so now when people want to come help me, I'm like, okay, great, I want to really for you to help me, but I'm also know that I'm not relying on anyone. I know that I could do it all on my own if I need to. It's a lot more work, but at least I know that we can make it work for now until we can get some help in. So sure. I think it definitely helped us, but also there's a negative effect of, in the sense of, you end up doing everything and you think that's normal, but it's not normal, and that's the thing that's harder to get out of.
Yeah. Going into this, year at the university, and you start coaching, are you thinking about like how you want to play? Was there a style of basketball that you wanted to coach and that your team should play? Were you teaching just the fundamentals? What were your thoughts on that?
I think when I took over, because I was still player coaching, I think I changed the style I play to what I've known from my coaches before. I think I remember taking a call with Dave and being like, "Hey, I don't know how to break a press. Like what kind of things I need to do." And I remember him saying, "Oh, this kind of stuff." And then offense wise, I picked up on stuff I'd like to play over the last 2-3 years, and we just used them kind of stuff. It wasn't much teaching because I don't think I was in the mindset of a teaching coach because I was still playing.
Right.
So it's more about tactical and conceptual things, how we wanted to play, and we had a lot of joy doing that. But no, I think as a player coach, it was more about making sure the players are happy, making sure we're playing a brand of basketball that we fits into our team. And it was all based on knowledge I've only known as a junior player, nothing high level at all.
Okay, so you're at university. What's the next stage? Where is this kind of like leading you to, like your first proper coaching job stop kind of thing?
So I come back to Leicester. After I finished university, not really sure what I want to do. And then I really make a decision that I think I want to go into teaching. But because it was so late, I hadn't applied for a PGCE. So that would mean I'd have 1 year of not doing anything within teaching and use that year to apply. So I was like, what can I do? So then I reached out because before I left, I did a year of coaching with Russell in schools with Leicester Riders. And I did a little bit with Dave, and I did camps with Carl. So them three, I messaged all three saying, hey, I'm back in Leicester. Is there anything? And I was looking for something that was concrete. Like I don't want hours. I want a job so that I don't have to go get another job.
Yeah.
And while I'm doing that, most people don't know is I started to work in a petrol station, because they would offer you 0-hour contracts. So I could pick shifts. So it wasn't like stressed on that.
Right.
And then I remember Dave and Carl both saying, oh, there's a couple of hours here and there, nothing full on, because that's not what they were doing. They were just working in the community, different schools. Then Russell rang me, brought me in for a meeting, and he offered me a community job because I know you're back. Would you want to do some community coaching, go into the primary schools, secondary schools, all that kind of stuff? And I was really intrigued. And he was like, oh, I need an answer by Friday. This was like Tuesday. So I was like, oh, okay. And then for me, I was like, I don't know if that's what I wanted to do. So I didn't reply back because he said he had 2 other people he was looking at. So I continued. There was nothing. So I was like, I don't know what I was going to do. Then 2 weeks later, I remember Russell ringing me back again. He goes, you never rang me back. I was like, you told me you had 2 other people. So I thought you gave it to someone else. He goes, no. I think it'd be really fit for you. Come back in. So he came back in. I spoke with Kieran Wiltshire, who was the leader of the community then, and Liz Jennings. And I'd known them from school time. So I think Russell was putting, oh, look, these are your friends.
Yeah.
What we're doing. This is something you can really reach into. So he sold it well with that. And then I ended up doing the community job. So that was going into primary schools, secondary schools, all that kind of stuff. And what was a blessing with that was that's where I met Joe Pinchin. So me and Joe Pinchin, we were in the same office. So became really good friends with that. I've known Kieran and Liz for a while, so became good friends. And then Russell always in and out. So I was obviously talking about how that side of the business works with the community stuff. So I did that. I grew different programs. We did like Project 3-on-3. We worked with the police and did like sessions to take kids off the floor. They allowed me to run sessions at like Rushameen, my old school, which became one of the biggest sessions. We went from like, I don't know, 12 kids to 90 kids one time. We had to use double the courts because I just knew the area that there's people wanting to play. So there was loads of different cool projects with that. And then that also meant I was around more of the Riders team because you connect with the Riders players when you go into coaching. So I took an interest into that kind of team, with Zaire and Jay Cousinard, all that kind of stuff. So that really showed me, that kind of it. But I got to the end of the year and I sat with Russell. I said, Russell, I think I'm going to have to leave the job. And he was, oh, how come? I goes, I don't want to be a community coach. I respect that I can do it and I can grow the numbers. But it's not I don't enjoy it. I feel like I'm not enjoying it. So he was like, okay. Then there was nothing elite at the time. So then I got a job the following year as a teaching assistant at my old school because the teacher's like, oh, this would be good for you to do. If you want to be a teacher, this will add to it. So if you do want to do PGC, this will help. So I was like, oh, okay, great. And then I was like, okay, but this was maybe it. I'm not going to coach basketball because I want to do elite and there isn't anyone coming to someone that did community coaching. And then I spoke with Dave Greenaway and he offered me a job at Nottingham. He offered me the job at Nottingham to assist him with WBBL or Division 1 at the time and run the second team, but commute from Leicester. So I was like, oh, that's really intriguing. And then I remember Joe Pinchin spoke with Matt Harbour. He was like, look, there's a guy from Leicester, knows basketball, loves it. I think you should give him a call because you're trying to grow here. So Matt brought me to Loughborough, sat me down with his laptop and showed me his depth chart and his visions. So then I'm like, okay, now I went from having nothing to 2 options. Now what do I do? And then I went back and forth and then I rang Dave back. I was like, honestly, Dave, I love the opportunity, but I'm pretty sure because both of them are unpaid, the volunteer basis. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get to December, January, having working, because I have to work as a TA from 8 to 4, then drive to Nottingham. I'm pretty sure I'll get to December, January, getting frustrated with the travel and all that and not getting paid.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do that. I want to really enjoy what I'm doing. And Loughborough is literally down the road.
Sure.
So I ended, and then also part of me was like, I haven't worked with someone like Matt Harbour, but I've worked with Dave. I've seen what Dave does, and I know I can pick up the phone to Dave anytime. So I was like, let me learn and have a different challenge somewhere else. So then that second year, I ended up working at Rushmead from 8 till 4, and then driving from 4 till like 10 in Loughborough, coaching not only with Matt, but also then leading the second team. And again, I remember the first practice I took with the second team, and we had all the university girls, and we had like 4 ace girls, you know, and I've never coached. Firstly, I've never coached women, girls, and then I've never coached a program where we had 2 or 3 of them that are on the national team pathway, you know.
Wow.
So I took the first session, and Matt was like, "Okay, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Why did you do this?" I'm like, oh, "This is what I kind of know." So I was like, "Okay, that's the real test of where we're at." And then I remember me and him sitting down saying, "Your aim with this team is these 3 need to get up to my team next year. So whether you win 1 game or 8 games, I don't care. The aim is to develop." So the mindset was, okay, can I develop this group? That team the year before only had won 2 games, so there's no pressure of any kind. But Matt was like, let's really focus on developing the players.
Right.
You know, come to the end of the year, I grew as a coach with Matt helping me, you know, working with different things and all that kind of stuff. And then I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. And then we ended up winning Division 1 with Matt. You know, we went to the Final Four. We had a good run and we won. And then with Division 2 team, we ended up finishing second in the league, and we only lost 5 games. So it was like a big jump, and 2 of the girls had made the team of the WBBL. So there was like, from Russell, there's like, okay, there's some value in what we're building right here.
Right.
And then again, we get back to the summer. I'm like, okay, now what do? I can't do this for a year volunteering because it takes a toll. I've applied for my PGCE. I went on 2 interviews. I got a place. So the day I get an email saying, "Oh, you've been accepted into a PE PGCE," which is one of the harder ones to get into because everybody wants to do PE, that is sports science. So I'm like super happy. 2 hours later, Russell happens to give me a call and goes, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting the girls' academy with a proper coach. Would you be interested?" So I was like, now what do I do? Do I become a teacher or do I go into coaching? And the money is way different, you know, as you can imagine, you know, a first level academy coach compared to a first level teaching salary.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do I do? So I rang my PE teacher, John Peacock, and Jay Achari. I rang both of them, and the best advice I ever got, John Peacock, he was like, can you be a PE teacher at any time? I was like, yeah, I just got to do a PGCE course. He goes, okay. Can you be a professional basketball coach anytime? I was like, no, I don't think so. He goes, well, why are you ringing me? You know the answer. Like, chase that. So I was like, okay. So I put the phone down, rejected my PGC, and just chased it. And I took over. That's when it started with the Charnwood program. You know, we had 6 girls on the roster. So
just before we go on to Charnwood, which I think is, you know, worthy of a whole chapter, like a whole talk, you know, so at this stage, you know, with Matt's influence, what are you concentrating on? Was there some things now that you started thinking, hey, I want to be known as a defensive minded coach, or you know, I'm going to teach each of the phases, you know, correctly? Was there anyone at this moment other than Matt that was influencing you? Were you looking at coaches in America or Europe, you know, how they taught the game, or how they were playing the game?
So at this stage with Matt, it wasn't. I didn't have a conceptual style of how I wanted to play offensively or defensively. It was more of, if you know Matt Harbour, he was very technically driven. Like he's one of the best coaches at teaching any kind of detail within the sport. So I learned more that aspect, like what are we trying to teach? And even remember talking about what I was like, so what kind of stuff do we want to run in the second team? I ran 2 offenses all year. He goes, these are the 2, figure it out. That was it. And that was great for me because that showed me that instead of 8, 9, 10 offenses, which I'm not sure, can I teach these 2 and now have to find every solution for these 2 sets, you know? And then talking about screening quality, screening read, types of passes, all that kind of stuff. So that's what we did all year. So that showed me that actually the value of, it doesn't matter what you're running, but the detail of what we are trying to apply. So his biggest influence was like focusing and having an eye for the technical detail on any part of the game. And and he helped me loads. He taught me, you know, how you should annually build your plan. You know, you can't just first practice, let's just go 5-1. It's not, like, slowly progress. And if your team loses because you haven't taught this, it's okay, because you're gonna get there, and you want to be peaking around this time of year, all that kind of stuff. So all that kind of stuff gave me the right mindset of how to build a team and where to focus on the technical detail. And then for me, I was like, tactical stuff can come. A lot of my tactical stuff came from me playing and watching. You know, I had a good feel for the game, and I think that helped me with the game coaching and all that kind of stuff. And Matt helped me really with focusing on the little details that you need as a basketball coach to make each player better.
Right. So going to Charnwood now, you know, it's kind of a full-time situation. Like you said, you had six girls. Who was coaching the boys was already set up, I'm assuming.
So it was funny because before I got there, Matt and Mark were doing it while doing university.
Absolutely,
it was combined, and it wasn't full-time, so it's really hard for both of them. So when they offered me the job, Josh Merrington got offered the men's job. So me and Josh came into Charnwood together.
Right.
So we had 6 girls and I think 12 boys. You know,
I think he mentioned that when I did the podcast with him.
Yeah,
I'm pretty certain. Yeah.
So then now I'm in an office with Josh Merrington, and we're trying to figure out how we can build a program together. And you know, it was really fun working with Josh. We had a Charnwood program where, you know, at the time nobody really knew who they were, you know, and it was a good challenge, but we helped each other. We got along really well. So I got to help with the boys and he helped a lot with the girls. And again, I learned a lot from him because he was a different type of coach. You know, he was more like, he had his tactical stuff and he was very good at teaching his tactical movements and spending a lot of time on that. And I gained that from him. I'm like, oh, okay. So these are the actions you're running, but he's really focusing on every kind of solution out of it. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to steal that from you. And, you know, have him to speak about, because obviously he coached WBBL Division 1 before he came to us. So he had a prior knowledge of doing the elite stuff, you know, where I wanted to be with. So that was quite fun.
Were you talking obviously you're talking on a daily basis with Josh. Is there anyone else like Matt, I'm assuming? And then, you know, where else was there? Was there also any link to, you know, to Rob and the other program like there is at this moment? Obviously the facility had helped with that, but obviously there wasn't one at that time.
No. So early stages, a lot of conversation with Matt and Josh was a lot. Mark Jarham as well, because he was in our group. He did the Division 1, so we were a lot together. Rob has always been very good. Any questions I've asked him, he always give me a response. My relationship with Rob grew as I got older. When I took over the WBBL team, that's when me and Rob had a stronger relationship. At the time, I believe I was a newer coach and I was just learning from the people above me, you know, with a little bit more experience than me. So that's where I was. But the best thing was that I was surrounded by, you know, Matt Harbour, you know, Josh Merrington, Mark Jarham, and all these guys have coached really well now. Rob was around. And then what people don't understand, like Sam Heathcote was our S&C coach at the time. He's gone on to do like Paralympics and all that kind of good stuff. Like I was really lucky at our age where I was as a youth coach to be surrounded by these kind of people. But what people don't realize, all of us were the similar age within 1 or 2 years. And we're all lead of our own program, but never really led a program, which is the benefit that Russell gives you. Like, hey, you're young, but hey, run with it. And if you fail, listen, you got no job. If you grow, we keep going and I keep supporting you. So it was a really good environment to be around.
Right. And so you're growing, you know, the Charnwood program. Did you become the assistant on the women's team at that time?
Yeah, so I was assistant from before that, so I just continued that role. Yeah, so it was then we go into year 2 with Matt working with that team, and then me running the second team and the academy at the same time.
Right. Okay. You know, was there any kind of, were you looking outside at this moment for any other influences? Did you try to find some other influences, or were you just, you know, it was such a good environment to learn from that you didn't think you needed?
I think at the time it was a very good environment to learn from, especially my first year. When I got to the end of my first year, that's when I spoke to a couple of them and see if there's anywhere else I can go. And Matt put me in touch with Don Showwater, and then I went to Snow Valley camp in America.
Went to Snow Valley. Was that the original Snow Valley, or do you went where did which one did you go to?
I went to the one in Iowa. I don't know.
Oh, okay, right,
I don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
that was
yeah.
the original one.
You didn't go to California, no?
No,
Okay,
no, no, no.
right,
I went to Iowa, and that's where I met loads of different coaches from obviously America and different kinds of places.
Awesome, great.
And then I learned from there how, again, it was a teaching camp. It wasn't like a hey, go play camp. So
One, if not the best, one of the best ever.
Exactly.
You know, certainly in America.
Exactly.
You know, as a teaching camp, you know, it's incredible.
How they spend loads of time in teaching different coaches, and like there was 400 kids, but like 90 coaches, which is unheard of, you know, because it's for the coaches as well as the players. So yeah,
Right.
towards the end, I started to now reach out to different. After that, making more connections and talking to different coaches from different parts of the world and in the US, and you know, trying to really upskill what I know and what I want to add to.
Right. And at this time, because you know, obviously, when did you start getting into the national team pathway?
See, that was another one. It was like the national team stuff didn't come until really late. It came when I got the WBBL stuff. That's how further down it was. I was further down the list, you know, as you were all the way through. When I think Vladan was running and all that kind of stuff, I never had a really look in. I know Josh did some stuff, and then Matt did some stuff, and I was just never on the radar with it. I remember going for like a regional job, but they gave it to somebody else, and I was like not understanding how come, because the person they gave it to was still playing, and I was like coaching at elite level. So I lost a little bit, like, okay, I don't really understand. But then once I got into like the WBBL head coaching situation, Mark Clark was like, hey, you should really apply. So then I started to apply for it, and then I finally got an interview. Before I didn't even get an interview for it. And then I didn't get the head coaching jobs because I applied for them, but I understand that because I've never been. I didn't expect to. But then I was lucky enough to have 2 opportunities to assist. I could have assisted with the under 16s with Kenrick or under 20s with Jeff, and I've always wanted to work with the higher end of the elite end, so that's why I ended up going into the national team. And Mark Clark was a big influence in that, and obviously Jeff, you know, really vouched for me. But I think that helps because I coached Georgia at Leicester for a couple of years, so she must have, you know, spoke well as well. So I think that really helped. But early on, it wasn't, you know, I didn't feel like I was in a pathway of any kind of sort, with any kind of support to push up. And that this was obviously back in the day.
Yeah, no. We'll come on to that at the end when we talk about the coaching and and the coach education and the opportunities. So the Charnwood is starting, is growing, like the whole Riders program has grown, like in a crazy way, both from standards and also, in obviously numbers and everything that happens. When do you make the jump from Charnwood to the women's team, and talk about that process of actually then coaching older girls and women, and what was that process? And by the way, also at this stage, were you starting to think, women's basketball is for me, but not men's basketball, or was it just the fact that this was the opportunity that you had?
So if I start with Matt gave me the opportunity to do elite basketball, and it was women. So my response was, I don't really care if it's men or women. Elite is elite.
Yeah.
And then once I started after my first year, I was sold into the women's stuff because there's such a big opportunity to grow something special.
Huge.
And I really enjoyed it. And the girl situation was something that was different to me, but the same for me. I classed it as elite, and I think it was not seen as, and I wanted to help grow that. But with the Charnwood, it started to grow. We went from 7 girls to 12 girls to 22 girls. We had more national team players. We created some. We ended up winning some national championships as well. So that grew. We had some really good staff that came alongside and helped me. Like, my thing was not only trying to help girls. As I was getting older, I was like, I want to help other people that, like Matt helped me. So Ollie Parr was one of them that we brought in. Ash Cookson was another one we brought in to be like, I want to help you be not only. I don't want to only help the players, but I want to help younger coaches, get an opportunity. Absolutely. And they were outstanding for the program. And then it got to the year, Matt. So we were in, I want to say we're in August or July. We're in July, and Matt pulls me outside where the meeting in the arena goes. I need to let you know before I let anyone else know that he's got an opportunity with ARU. And I've known Matt. Me and Matt are like really good friends, and by then we're like really good friends. And I know it's closer to his home, close to his mom. Good situation for Ash, his girlfriend, and him. And he was like, I was like, it makes sense that he's going to look to take it if it's a good opportunity to build something, but also be closer to family.
Sure.
And he's like, I'm going to ask or push Russell to give you an opportunity for WBBL. Would you be interested before I say, hey, you should look at Krumesh? I was like, yeah, because part of me was like, if Matt's going to stay here for 5 more years, I don't think I can stay here for 5 more years because I want to be an elite coach,
Right.
And I'm not trying to push anyone out, but, either I have to move or somebody has to move on.
Sure.
So he moved on. Russell then met with me, 48 hours, and he's like, are you interested? So I'm like, yes, like I really would love to do it. And then the next thing was getting onto the phone with the players and be like, hey, do you want to come back? Even though Matt's not coming, because it's a big thing. A coach leaves, players want to leave. We were quite fortunate. All the players we ended up contacting when Matt was leaving decided to come back and also come to us. For example, like Hillary Winterburn was a big question mark because Matt had done a lot for her, and before she came to Charnwood. And does she want to, give me a chance to continue with her growth, or does she want to go, somewhere else? Maybe like Barker was a little bit more established doing it. But she trusted us. And then I remember Dee Haywood and Erin McGarrican, they were leaving because Scotland were in the Commonwealth build at the time. And I was like, okay, so we have to replace them kind of too. What can we do? And then I remember being an assistant, I think it helps because you build different kind of relationships.
Sure.
And they both clearly had a good relationship with me, and within the month had both rang me about coming back because their situation hadn't worked. I was like, no problem. The guys, I can make it work. So awesome. that was the first part of the elite stuff. Is like, okay, the recruitment part is different to like the academy part, it's a different kind of sell, so they need to understand about who you are, what you're trying to do, how you can help them. But it's women, it's not younger girls, with the young girls, I understood what the pathway was, and I could really be like, hey, I think this is what I can help you with, and I can really get you there. With the pro one, it's again, I'm back to square one. Nobody knows I've done that kind of stuff, so why would you want to trust me?
Right.
Try to get my case across. And again, they trusted me. The biggest thing I learned about working with the women stuff is a better dialogue, better, clear communication. Again, I took the approach of coaching the team a little bit differently to Matt, because we're just very differently.
I was going to ask you that. Yes. Yeah. So, what did you change? Was it tactically, or what were the things you changed?
I think it was more so the personalities we were. Like Matt was very much technically driven, whereas I think I was more tactically driven, more so. So I put more emphasis on the tactical stuff than the technical stuff,
right.
And I was more about letting the players have a little bit more freedom in what I was trying to do within the structure, rather than you have to do this, have to do this, have to do this. Right. And I think that blossomed a lot, with some of the players, and they gave them a little bit more freedom to play within. So I think that I took a lot of basis of what Matt had built, and just tried to tweak it a little bit to the personnel we had, and a little bit of who I am, and it could have gone either way.
Sure, yeah.
But it was on the basis of what he'd already put in, and I just tweaked it a little bit here and there to see what I can, really get out of it.
Yeah. And, obviously, very, with some real success there. What was there anything you take from there? Was there anyone else? Now you're a head coach of, a top team. Who are you now talking to? Who's, is there someone that you're like going to that, you feel is Jeff Jones, starting to be involved in at that time, where you can go and ask him questions, or who were some people that you were kind of leaning on, for the actual running a team for the first time at that level?
That's a good question. I don't think I went out, reached out to anyone externally. I don't think I did. Me and Matt spoke before I left, and then he left me to it. Russell and me spoke a lot about how we want to do stuff, and again, he left me to it. And then I went on my own with it and learned that way. I had a good assistant in Ash Cookson, so we bounced a lot of ideas off of each other, supported each other. I spoke with the players, they gave me some feedback, whether I wanted to hear it or not, I think that definitely helped me grow as a coach, but I at the time, I didn't have anyone I would say as a mentor that was like above to that I can go to. I know like Matt would speak with like Vladan and, you know, stuff like that. So with Josh, but I never had that relationship with him, you know. So I was just like talking with the people I knew within my circle, like Mark or Matt or Josh or whatever,
Right.
and figuring out that way, I think.
Yeah, that's great. Very quickly, some of the standout moments from working with the women's team. You got like some favorite moments there?
Yeah, I think obviously my favorite moment is the WBBL trophy. You know, it's the first silverware for the WBBL team. That was huge for the program and for myself. But what I don't know if everybody knows, 2 days before the final, I had to have an ACL meniscus surgery. So a month or 2 months before that, I tore my ACL in a local league game playing for the Leicester Riders local team,
Right.
which I hadn't played. And then we booked in with the NHS to find the surgery, and they just tell you when it is.
Yeah.
And I remember getting the call a week before, and I was like, Russell, they said that I could do my operation on Thursday. He goes, yeah, the final Saturday. He goes, yeah. He goes, you have to take the surgery because it could be another 3-4 months before you booked in. You can't wait. And I was like, what about the final? Russell was like, take care of your body first. I was like, okay. And then everyone I spoke to who has had an ACL injury, they're like, there's no chance in hell you're coaching. I'm like, nah, I'm gonna coach. They're like, no, you're not, because of all the you know, the drugs you're on.
I know it. I know. I've had two surgeries, and you know, one that I did put off for a long while, because of exactly what you're saying as well. You know, so
I took the surgery, and I was like, I'm gonna back myself, and then I hobbled to practice on Friday. I didn't do anything. I was still on the sideline, just in crutches. Spoke a little bit of stuff. And then my sister's like, we're ready if you need it. So I'm like, no, I think I'm gonna do it. They're like, everyone was like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. I'm like, my mind's set on it. I can do it. So I went there Saturday, and then I remember coaching the game. I put my crutch down, and the table officials, obviously, as you know, as a coaching, they start to know you. I remember one of them, Maggie Calendar, she was like telling me, like, always telling me off, you know, because I remember letting my brace go, and I jumped a little bit, and everyone was just angry at me. I was like, guys, I can't remember that. And then we ended up going into halftime, and then I can't remember. My sister's like, do you know what you just said there? I was like, no. He goes, yeah, well, you said hands in, and you said something you shouldn't have said. I was like, like, I'm not gonna say what I said there, but it was quite funny. And then we ended up winning the game. And then I remember sitting down and be like, my knee really hurts because the adrenaline's gone. So I think that was one of the best moments for me with the WBBL team. The other one would be getting to the O2. That group had been trying for years to get there and always falling short. And finally getting there was a big occasion. We started that moment that we should be there kind of situation.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. And then what I really enjoyed was I was able to do it while blending in young players. You know, I didn't just play with the seniors. The young ones, and a real opportunity to make an impact in them situations. And I really enjoyed doing that all the way through with that.
Oh, that's awesome. So, you know, I've obviously heard you know, talk about, you know, the whole thing with regards to Sweden, but, you know, when were you thinking, you know, this is great, you know, I do enjoy being in this process here in Leicester, but, you know, I want something more. And how did that manifest itself?
So I think it starts from, the program was going through changes, you know, and we were losing staff, you know, for various reasons, like Matt left, Josh left, all that kind of stuff. And we needed to fix holes. So at the time I was doing WBBL, I was also still running the head of the academy, you know, and doing that. So it's a full-on job. And then I had my assistant, Ash, he was doing the W Bucks teams because I couldn't do all of them.
No.
So it came to a point, it's like, we need to, you know, what do we need to do? And, you know, for the better of the program, and again, I look back and I regret it a little bit, but for the better of the program, it was better if I came away and became the head of the program, and we brought in, it was easier to bring in a WBBL coach than it was an academy coach of the level we needed to be. That's what we believed, which I think is fair. I think it's more people want, it's easier to get a professional coach from abroad to come coach a professional team than say, hey, come coach 20 kids at Charnwood, which is a full-on schedule. So that's why we bring in Jesper. And then that year I had a phenomenal year. Like I helped Jesper with the pro team, fixing the team and stuff, and left him to it. I coached the Division 1 team. We won the trophy that year. The under-18s went to the final. We won WBBL. You know, we were successful.
Really?
And then, but I was like, it's not the itch. I wanted to be at the professional level, you know. But again, I'm back in that situation where, yes, I'm the head of the whole women's program, but I want to be coaching the elite level. But again, I'm back at that stage where I don't want to kick out. Don't get rid of him to give me the job.
No.
We made that decision for the benefit of the program.
Sure.
I feel like that put me back a step without realizing in the moment, you know. And then this is when, okay, I did one more year, and I was like, I can't do it again. Like I'm not enjoying it in that sense. Russell was always clued in with it. I had a running dialogue with him, and he was fully supportive. He could see it. He goes, "You need to go do something else to continue to expand, and then maybe come back." And most people that know me is like, for me, I always have to have a challenge of like, what's next? I can't keep doing the same thing, not knowing there's a better challenge. And I think that was an easy situation for me then to look into a different environment.
Right. And, you know, quickly, how did you get there? And then we'll start talking about the situation that you're in now.
So that was an interesting story. Again, how it transpired was, as you do when you're trying to look at different places, the best way is by contact. You know, who do you know where to, like, is there something? And again, what happened was I explained to Russell, I'm going to explore, and he was like, yeah, fully supportive. I got an opportunity in Denmark. So I knew someone there who put me in touch with an academy situation there, but it was a men's program, and it was men's Division 1 and assist with the men's pro league, you know? So I was like, oh, this is a whole different environment. It's going into men's, and somebody is willing to see what I've done and value that it's coaching, not just girls or women, it's coaching. So I flew to Denmark, had the interview, did 2 days there, did the workouts they really were happy. They offered me the job. So I mean, this is now move forward a month or so once they offered it. We're in like lockdown, you know. So I'm like, okay, like, what do I do? I'm like, spoke with the GM. He's like, look, I'm happy we come up with the contractual stuff. I'm happy with it verbally, and they sent me the contract. And then I meant to sign it and send it back, and then something just doesn't feel right. I couldn't tell you what it was, Tony. Just like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, is it gonna scratch what I want? Like, I'm going, yes, I'm doing men, but I'm still not the lead coach in that program. I'm the assistant to the men's team and leading the second team. And am I going to feel like that again? Like, I want to be. So then I ended up turning it down. And then I'm like speaking to my friends and my family. I'm like, I think I'm going to be Leicester all my life. Like jobs don't come back. Jobs don't come, like, especially abroad, like quickly. 2 weeks later, Jesper messages me. He goes, have you seen what happened here at Wetterbygden? I was like, no. He was like, the coach has decided to retire or come away from coaching. He goes, you should send him the CV. I was like, no problem. Sent it to him. And then a week later, I get a phone call from someone here, the sporting director, and he just has a conversation with me. He goes, I spoke with Jesper and Susie, because obviously Susie's there. And he said, before I rang you, and both of them spoke really highly of you. So Jesper spoke well, and Susie, I've known Susie when I first started Riders and always had my back. Spoke really highly. And then conversations about idea. And then I was like, I'm going to be honest about what I want to do and how I operate. And they really, really liked my ideas and my concept. And then after that was it. A couple of weeks talking back and forth, and they offered me a contract.
That's awesome. So let's talk about going to Sweden. You know, some of the things that you're now in. You know, what I call Europe. This is a really solid basketball country. What are some of the things that shock you straight away, and that you surprised you? You know, when you get right onto the court to start.
What surprised me straight away was how welcoming everyone was straight away. You know, that was for me like a big, like, I was going in thinking that people were going to be reserved and stuff, because, I'm new. I don't really, I'm not from Sweden, but no, everyone was super welcoming, super friendly, wanted to know me, wanted to help me. I remember coming, dropping my bags. The men's coach was a Spanish guy, my assistant, and then another academy coach all came and took me to dinner into the city. I was like, nice. Wow, this is, and straight away I felt like, oh, this is a good environment to be in. And then basketball wise, what again, I'm going into Europe, I'm going to Sweden, but everybody speaks English really well here, really strongly. They learn from a younger age. So it made it easier for me. It's funny because some of the younger ones would not talk as much, but now they don't talk. They don't stop talking because it's something new to them.
Sure, yeah.
How professional the women's side was for everything. It was the same as the men. So like little things to like, you know, changing rooms and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Food on when we're traveling, you know, like the gym is decorated like a proper game with banners and everything for every game. We have the introduction where the lights are turned off and they get own announcements. There's a projector, there's a crowd, like the environment for crowds. Maybe you know this, but I'm not used to it. When I go to away games, there's a changing room for the players, but changing room for the coach.
Right.
Coach gets their own changing room. For me, that's like unheard of. Like I remember
that doesn't happen everywhere, but you know, it can happen. But that's awesome.
You know, for me, and these are the things that like, I'm just waiting for the girls to get changed, and then I'll go get changed. You know, so you know, all these things were like, you know, exciting times, but all positives. You know, not much negative stuff.
You know, combine it a little bit, talk a little bit about a typical week that leads up to a game, and how much different is that to what you would have typically done, you know, in the UK?
So I think the biggest difference is I can just focus on my team. You know, that's rare. It wasn't going to the academy or going to the field. Like it was like just on my team. So that was good. We could prep the whole week how we wanted to do it, and then the facility we have has key motion on it, so it was easy to record every practice just by click of a button, and I could film everything and clip it. And we have sidelines, so we can send clips to the players. So the plan is early part of the week is just focus on, you know, what we want to be better with in our areas and send them tape with that. And then when we get to the latter end of the week, it was really focusing on what the other teams are doing, how we wanted to attack them, and how we wanted to cover them. But we would practice every afternoon around 4 till 5:30. Monday through Friday, and then in the mornings we either went at 7 o'clock or like at 10:30, depending on what we want the player schedule.
Sure.
Skill workouts and stuff as well. So we had a fine balance of really trying to increase their skills, but also, you know, focus on the team aspects of it all the way through. And we had a gradual build all the way to the end of the week, ready for the game on the Saturday.
Are you giving them just typically in the season one day off, or you know, if it's a lot, because, you know, if it's a 7-day, you know, if you say for argument's sake, you play on a Saturday, you play on a Saturday. I'm not sure what the schedule is, but if you play Saturday, some coaches give 1 day off, but then in the middle of the week they take something out, and they go super light. Or I'm just asking that question because there's a number of ways to do that a week in a certain week.
So depending on where we played, so obviously if we played on Saturday, Sunday would be off. If we played Sunday, Monday would be off. That was a normal thing. What we would try to do is if we got to the Wednesday session, that's when we would change it more into a shooting skills kind of session.
Right.
Sometimes, again, reflecting back, sometimes I didn't change that. We practiced every day, but we wouldn't do the skill workouts. So it was only one practice a day. So it wasn't too much on them as well. But again, looking back at it, trying to adapt it this year, change it this year, we're looking to pick a day where the players get a full day off in the week from the feedback we're getting. And that's coming from them. But it also allows us to do more in the other days as well. So it's like I said, I'm very much with trying to adapt to what's best for the players as well as what I want. I'm not like, no, we have to do this. Right. But also with I use a sideline, and we monitor the RPs in wellness every week. And I can see the flow and drop. So when I feel like it's on a low, I start to adapt the week a lot more. So I might pull sessions, I might make sessions lighter, I might make them less, I might put a team event in. So that's monitored week to week. So instead of saying we're only going to go 4 days.
Are you monitoring that, or is your S&C guy monitoring that?
So me and the S&C together, you know, so we monitor together. So she's allowed to give me her feedback, but like, Krumesh, I think you need to drop it a little bit this week, or we can increase it, or vice versa. I might say, hey, I think we need an extra hit. What do you think? So it's monitored with myself and her, and next year I'll be monitored with me, an assistant, and her, you know, so trying to get more people into it. But like I say to all the players, they get to be honest with it, so it can really hone in. So we monitor their sleep, how they're feeling, their mood, all this kind of good stuff. Then to pick how we want to practice that week. I can't just be like, hey, we're going to do this because I think this. It's not that. I need to know how you, not only how your body's feeling, but how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And adapt that a little bit.
Where do you think you've grown as a coach this season? And would have you ever thought that you could have grown in those areas if you were still in the UK?
No, as in, like, I don't think if I stayed in the UK, I would have grown in this area. The area is being able to change the goalpost of what you're trying to achieve. I'm coming from a program where, yeah, I built it up, but I was successful and I won a lot, to a program where I'm starting from the bottom, trying to build a program up.
Sure.
And that's obviously takes, you would have been there when you're in a program where you're trying to rebuild it. So it takes different kind of situations. So my ambition is like, oh yeah, we'll get this done and I'll get rolling. And actually, no, you won't, because there are teams that are already doing that.
Right.
So that challenged me a bit, but the management I've here were very supportive. There was a couple of situations where I'm at the end of the game, like, really, like, we should have done this, we could have done that, why didn't we do this? And they're texting me, that was really good, did you do this? Or did you realize you got 3 younger ones in playing 12 minutes? That's never been done. And like, I was like, oh, so they're seeing like all the positives of what I said I was going to do, and they're like, Krumesh, it's a process, it's not going to happen, but this is phase 1. And
right.
That really helped me.
Were you surprised at the level of the coaches of the other teams, or were you expecting that? And is that part of the challenge that you wanted?
Yeah, so part of me is I want to be challenged tactically, and that's one of the main reasons I left. I wanted to be in an environment where I was going to get challenged. One good thing about here that I've seen is every coach is very different in tactically how they do stuff. It's not you're not going to roll up to the game and see the same kind of style. It's very different teams, and coaches are willing to try a different kind of situation. So that was a fun challenge, I thought I really enjoyed this year. I didn't struggle tactically, in my opinion, I don't think, but I was pleasantly challenged, which I really like. So that's like, okay, I need to be better in these areas, and this coach is very good at doing this, and that makes you think a lot more.
Sure.
But also is that, how can I do that while upgrading the team I've got right now to make sure I can do that as well? So no, for sure, tactically there's a lot more going on, and I'm seeing different things, as you would, because it's a different country.
Yeah.
And coaches trying to do more different things, and this league has a lot like younger coaches as well, and I think younger coaches are now in that environment of like trying to do something different a lot of the time. So it's a fun battle with a lot of the coaches, for sure.
Right. And last question. I mean, you've obviously, got some success there, and you've impressed people because you were handed a 3-year contract, and I got to congratulate you for that. What's the aspiration for the program?
To slowly now grow up into the program, into the league, build up, bit by bit, pushing up. Don't be ridiculous. Be like, Krumesh, don't say, oh, now you're going to win the league. It's not going to happen. But can we go from here to here? Can we go from here to here? That's the aspiration, and trying to break into the stronger mold in the playoffs and make our way into the top 4. Then can we, talk about Euro Cup in the future? That's the long-term 3-4 year goal, which is possible. Then it's like, okay, for me, it's like, can I create Euro League, Euro Cup players? Can I create players going to the WNBA? That's the aim. Like, we had a girl in the league got a contract to the WNBA, and she's 20, 21, but she's not on my team, another team. So I was like, okay, this is a good environment. And also, it's like the Swedish system is like the education is paid for here. So there's no real need to push to, hey, you need to go to America to get better, because actually education can get paid for, and we can create player here. Whereas in the UK, it's more like, well, the education isn't paid for. That's why US is a little bit more appealing, So the ambitions of the club is to keep growing of the league, but can we produce more and more of our own players? So we have our team, but below us we have another set of 16 girls, and below that we have another set of another 16 girls. I have a 15-year-old already practicing with my team. I have 2 16-year-olds already up with the team. We're looking at the next one. So it's like, can we bring our own players through, but can we create them into good Euro League, Euro Cup players, while trying to build a team to be a top 3, top 4 team as well over the years, not straight away,
Okay. Getting towards the end here now, but thoughts on British coaching, and the coaching fraternity, and then I've got some other questions after that. But you've alluded that you didn't speak to as many coaches. Do you feel that there was there was times where more people should have been talking to you, asking your advice, and vice versa? What's your thoughts on us as a coaching fraternity?
I think growing early when I was started, it was like people didn't know who I was, and nor do they want to know who I was. That's how I felt.
Sure.
And as I've slowly got more experience and had some success, it still feels the same way. I don't think as many people are reaching out and speaking to me, or and I'm not too sure why. But what has happened is there are a handful of coaches that I now speak to that I wouldn't have before, and that's been really good, and they're becoming like more friends. But that's growing. But I don't think every coach is. It's not because they don't want to talk to me. I think everyone's a little bit more reserved. I think they feel like you can't talk to each other, or you shouldn't talk to each other. And I think this year and last year that's changing more. But this is me talking in the past.
In the past, yeah, I understand
but
that. Yeah.
I think I think the more coaches that are willing to talk to each other, open out. So I've reached out to a few people myself, like who I believe are younger coaches, be like, hey, if you want to talk to me, I'm here, because I know when I was there, nobody ever reached out to me to be like, hey, if you want to talk. But I was quite fortunate because of the people that were around me were enough. I wasn't on my own. We had a group of 4 or 5. I was never alone. But I know there are some programs out there that you could feel lonely on your own. So I'm like trying to reach out to some and be like, hey, look, you could just, I'll sit there and listen. I'm not trying to say I know everything or I know anything. I just want to be led to talk to you because I know I would have appreciated that. But I didn't feel like growing up there was a fraternity, and if there was, I don't feel like I was part of it.
Right.
But I was really lucky with the people that are around me and the people I met on my journey that stayed and helped me out. But people that weren't on my journey, I don't feel like they would speak to me or reach out to me at all. And if I didn't coach the WBBL, I don't know where I would be at all, because I think that gave me a little bit more validation of like, okay, or maybe he does know what he's kind of doing.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, linked to this is the fact that, not only are you a trailblazer by going to Europe and so, and coaching abroad, it's so few British coaches that have done that have taken the challenge. But you're also, from an ethnic minority, or your family background is, I know that Mark asked you this question about, your Asian background and, the Asian coaches, Asians playing basketball. What's your thoughts on that? I mean, I personally, and I'm just going to say this, I think that our governing body is missing a real opportunity with someone like yourself. You should have your own special program. You should be mentoring a set of coaches, and that's not, to say everyone should have a special group. I'm not saying that, but we know that there's our sport, of all the sports in the UK, is inclusive of everyone. Everyone wants to play basketball. Everyone loves playing basketball. And there's a big, population, from the Asian community that want to play, want to coach, and we're not reaching them and giving them that opportunity. This is me speaking here.
And for me, I think you've nailed it, because I come from an environment where when I was at school, 80% was Indian, 80%,
Sure.
My basketball team was 12 of us, well, 9 of us were Asian, if you'd ask me how many of them play now, none. Some play for fun here and there, but it's just not given. And I speak to my friends afterwards and stuff, and like, oh, how come you didn't continue into sport? Because a lot of them, firstly, you are not pressured, but it's encouraged in the Asian background to go into like accounts or doctor, or go to a job that's going to pay you. Sport isn't one of them, because there isn't any role models out there getting paid doing their sport. And then first thing when you're playing is, okay, if I'm not going to be a professional player, I'm going to do something else. They don't know there's an avenue for a coaching or physio or S&C, all that kind of stuff. Because again, somebody asked me, oh, who's your role model? In the Asian community, I was like, I couldn't tell you.
No.
There isn't. It's not well known. And that's something that for me is like, okay, I want to be able to change. Like when I first told my dad, I was going to go down the sports avenue and all that kind of stuff, he was questioning, are you sure? Is that something you want to do? Blah, blah, blah. But as he got older, he was more like, he could see my passion and was really supportive of what I wanted to do. It was funny because even after after the first year of university, somebody asked, "Oh, what's Krumesh doing?" My mum and dad both said, "Oh, something with business and accounting or referee." My dad was like, "Maybe refereeing." They weren't really, because it wasn't really honed on. But for me, it's like, if there isn't a role model for you to look up to, how can more people want to do it?
Yeah.
And that's where we're at right now. Like, we talk about inclusion of other people, but there isn't. How many, like, for me, it was like, oh, how many other Asian coaches, and I think I know two. One's Tahir, who's now gone into commentary a little bit more, and one's Arbam, who's like, doing in Leicester with the school stuff. And they're both in Leicester, and they're not even anywhere near the level that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, there isn't a big
Why,
push for it.
why in, for argument's sake, just, I'm just picking a community I know in London. Why is there not someone in Tower Hamlets or, in Southall, that was running a great program, and there's that really, that's disappointing from our sport, because we are an inclusive sport. We almost don't shut at any levels, both male, female, disabilities, everything. And so we should be, doing more in this area.
Well, exactly. And I use obviously just the Leicester area, but there's so many different areas like that in the country. But if we can take a session at Rushmead and grow to 90 kids, there's people there wanting to play. And from them 90 kids, how many of them could be coaches, referees, table officials, S&C? Like, we need to get into them and target them. But again, we need to show them that it can. For me, it's like, there needs to be more out there showing that it can be done in the Asian community in sport, and unless they see that, why are people going to be like, okay, I want to do that? Like, again, we're in Leicester, and which is a highly Asian populated city, but how much are we doing to target the Asians? Luckily we have someone like Joe Pinchin, who was there, who took my idea about we should do a Diwali game. We did a Diwali kit. China, that's not heard of, but we're not. I don't think we don't do enough to push that. But it stems from, like, even for me, like, I got quite fortunate that my PE teacher, John Peacock, and JHR, like, they really pushed and sport, and they showed me the passion, and that's why I wanted to do it, but all my other friends, it wasn't the same. But imagine if why do all these people want to be footballers? Because, well, they see someone they can relate to, or there's an opportunity for, hence why my dad wanted me to be a cricketer. There's loads of Asian guys that are really good at cricket, and the next one he was like, you need to be a golfer. But because there's one golfer that was Asian that came through. But again, for me, what people ask me why I want to continue to do what I want to do is, like, the higher up I can get, the further I can get, I hope to inspire more people to join me and be like that. Like, I reached out to be like, okay, I want to speak to someone that's Asian, and who can I speak to? I found a group in America, and it's Asians, as in, from
Southeast Asian.
Yeah. And
Vietnamese, Filipino.
But they rang me straight away. Had calls with different people, and just like, no problem. Like, but how is that I have to go, all the way there to find somebody to speak to them about? But for me, it's like a difficult conversation, because if you speak to it too much, people are like, oh, you don't understand. You're just saying that because you're saying it. But I'm like, I'm not saying, people are, discriminating or racist, but sometimes it feels like you're on your own, because you are different. But who can you turn to when there's no one I know I can turn to? You go through it.
It's great point. We could go on for a long while on that one, but I really appreciate those honest words there. Let's just finish it with 3 quick questions. So, favorite drill that you have that you use at this moment?
The one I'm having the most fun with, and I really enjoy, is having the FIBA 3-on-3 style into practice. I absolutely enjoy it. Why? Because it's fast paced, everybody gets touches, and it's the one drill that I don't think anybody complains about, oh, I'm not playing, I'm standing on the sideline. It's going all the way through, and I'm using it to do different things. Like, we could talk about like one-on-one defense or pin downs or ball screen, but within that environment that's fast paced. But that's my favorite drill, because if you talk about it, if people say 5-on-5 really gets 10 people, this at least gets 12 people involved straight away. 2 coaches are involved, because I can't be at both ends of the floor, and you're teaching all the time, because everyone's getting touches. So I think that's my favorite drill at this current moment, using especially in the off season as well.
Okay, great. Favorite all-time basketball coach?
See, I was when you asked me the question, I wrote it down as just coach. I was like, oh, he just means it could be anyone, Like,
it can be anyone. There's some coaches. Some coaches on the podcast have talked about their first ever coach that coached them, and some talk about the all-time great coaches.
So if I had to think about it, like I want to mention, like there are coaches that I really looked up to that aren't in basketball, you know, like someone like Alex Ferguson or Bill Belichick or Steve Hansen in the New Zealand team, because they do so many different things within their team environment. You know, they're all team
Absolutely.
coaches
Yeah.
and created different cultures of team. Basketball wise, who's my favorite? Like I really enjoyed watching different coaches through the years, you know, like Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich have played a really good brand of basketball, but who I think at the moment, who I like it because he's very innovative, is Brad Stevens. I think he's trying to do different things all the time. And I associate myself like, I want to do different things on the floor, defensively and offensively. And he does that. So I'm like, okay, I can really relate to what you're trying to do, steal what you're trying to do, but that kind of coach. So I would say him for right now.
Awesome. And then lastly, favorite go-to saying or statement that the players hear almost all the time.
Well, it's funny you said that. I was on the phone with Ali Parr, and I was like, you know, he had me a lot in practices. Like, what do you hear? There's a couple, so I had to write them down. So I'm gonna try to go through them. They were like, if they do silly errors, I would always be like, what are you doing with my hands open like that? And they knew exactly, because it was like such an obvious error. Or if they had excuses, I always asked them like, ask me if I care, and they knew it was an excuse because they knew it was a silly one. And then the other one was, it was very simple, where I home into is like, either you do it or you don't do it. That's it. There's no in between. So they're the three ones I'd go into for reasons why. But
awesome
my statements.
Coach, listen, it's been a pleasure having you on. You know, we could talk for, as usual, for a lot longer. And, you know, I want to wish you all the success. I mean, it's great. Congratulations again on signing the contract, and extremely hard to be able to continue coaching in Europe. And I only think that you can go further than that. And wish you all the best in the future, and have a great summer as well.
No, really appreciate you having me on, and I've had a lot of fun talking to you.